Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 13th day of June, 2019. Well, it seems like this week has been all about maybe setting boundaries and focusing on the awareness and the truth that we are a unified consciousness. Instead of seeing everyone as the other, we're sort of transforming back into who we really are. Seeing the fallacy of separation and disunity and division. It's just a fallacy. It's not even real. It's a choice that we're making based on perception instead of truth. So we've been seeing the last couple of weeks anyway, and this week in particular, just a movement toward that. On one day, we even had loss as a possible impetus for realization, and that maybe we've realized that what we've been believing we shouldn't. And then yesterday was interesting as we started with the tower, and so that pretty much blows the lid off of any illusion we're living under. So it's not a negative card, it's actually a really positive one. Let's see if today we stay on that same path, or if we maybe go down a new one. So if it's your first time here, thank you so much for coming by. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. And if you're coming back, thank you. I appreciate you guys so much as we explore tarot and runes together. If you haven't been here before, I actually added another type of runic divination tool. It's geomancy. And I do that. I do a geomancy glyph at the end of the reading just to kind of give an overall, or maybe a fundamental, or maybe an outlier. We don't know until we get it. That day that loss seemed to be the impetus for transformation and for realization. It was actually the geomancy rune Tristitia that did that. That sort of provided that whole. It sort of drew everything together. It's like, oh, I see. Because a lot of things can sort of prompt change, and loss is a really big one. Realizing that there's all kinds of loss. Maybe you have a marriage that ends, or a partner for some reason, either divorce or death or what have you, or you lose your job, or you lose a friend, or maybe you lose a little bit of innocence because you realize you were conned or duped by someone. And it's hard not to feel responsible for that, that somehow we should have known. But I'm going to tell you, con artists are very, very good at what they do, and they find a way in. They find a way in. It's not because we're stupid or anything else. They find a way in. But then we've always blamed victims, haven't we, in this world? We can't seem to understand that the burden belongs on the person who's causing the trouble, not on the person who trusted. We all trust when we shouldn't. It doesn't make us idiots. It just makes us trusting. And it's the fact that somebody else decided to con us in a way that they depended on that trust. So, not your fault, ever. Well, as the 13th day of the month, we can look at that as the master witch number. I do, but most numerologists reduce it to 4. So we're talking some structure stuff, some foundations. Maybe we'll draw some pentacles here. It could center on the more mundane aspects of life today. I just view it as a number for magic, so that and 7. It's a Thursday, so we're talking Jupiter influences, but Jupiter's in retrograde, so maybe focus on some inner work, expanding your awareness. That's always fun. one way you can do it. That's a really easy way. If you've never really done any trance work, you know, the idea is you're going to go within and you're going to come to that still point, you know, find your source, basically, shut out everything else. You know, and if you need a focus, you could always use a candle, and you can basically go within the candle flame and visualize yourself transporting yourself into, you know, the candle flame itself. So that's one way you can focus. I mean, you can basically use anything if you need a focus. If you don't, this is one that I use, that I did. I use that one a lot. Sometimes I don't, though. Sometimes I'll, you can also use a crystal. This is apopolite, and I like it real well. It has a nice resonance to it. So you can also hold crystals and use them as a focus if you want to do that. But candle work is really nice, you know, when you're using that, when you're doing trance work. So I highly recommend candle work as well. But, you know, once you get there, you just allow what comes up. If thoughts come up, you just let them go. You just watch them go. I like to take that time to dissolve any energetic channels I've created, to either, and because basically they're thought channels is what they are. And the problem with allowing them, some people call them cords. I don't. They also say, oh, you should cut the cords. I don't do that either. I would prefer to just acknowledge that the channels exist and that I created them and that I don't need them anymore. If I need to connect to somebody or something, then I can do that always again. But it's always good every day to sort of bring all that back home, all your energy back home, all your attention, all your focus. And if you visualize them just as energetic channels, sort of moving away from you, you know, you can visualize each one and just see it and soften it and allow it to just dissolve into nothing. And then draw back whatever's left to your still point. So that's one thing you can do when you're working with Jupiter energy in retrograde on a Thursday. We just love their correspondences. We like everything everything has energy, everything has a specific assignment, you know. And so, you know, you've got like, you know, Venus is on Friday, and so love magic would be done then. Wednesday is Mercury, you know, yellow is the color, and you would do things involving communication, maybe clarity, awareness, all of that. So it depends on you know, what day it is, what planetary body governs it, and as to what you want to do magically on those days. So anyhow, little magic 101. Let's get started. And if you haven't been here before, I take the 13th card every time, and we drew the devil. 15th card of the major arcana. It's a soul archetype card. It's basically talking about self-imprisonment by the ego. I need to put the cards down here so I can show you some things. All right. Here you see the two individuals. They're chained to whatever it is that the devil is sitting on or perched on. You see an oak leaf on the guy's tail. You see I think it's a pomegranate maybe on her tail, but I'm not sure. We see the inverted pentagram on his head, above his head, which has, you know, unfortunately gotten the idea of being evil, but it's not. It's just pointing down to spirit, that's all, or pointing down to earth, rather, form. The normal way is pointing up to spirit. All it is just the elements plus spirit. That's all it is. But here we've got the guy with his wings and the goat head and the horns. But you also see as above, so below. He's got one hand raised towards spirit, and the other hand holding a club, a lighted club, through the flame tip there, pointing toward earth or form. And what this is indicative of is his focus is on ego. But all of that's a perception, right? The only thing that really exists is spirit. Anything else that's part of this collective consciousness is an illusion, as is the ego. Although the ego does pull us, doesn't it? You know, it's the instinctual side of self. It's the primal side of self. Excuse me. We have a lot of cottonwood out. I've got cottonwood trees. I got cottonwood fuzz floating everywhere. The cotton of it, when it seeds out, it's a mess. It's like it's snowing out there, and it gets everywhere. Anyway, it gets in our throats, and we end up, you know, off to the wild cherry bark tincture. That and the nettle. Otherwise, we can't breathe. We sound like we have strep throat, both of us. But anyway, when we see the devil, it's basically lost focus. It's spirit no longer informing the process, that it's self-imprisonment in a way. You're no longer in the creative source present mode. You're in the reactive mode of ego. You know, and here they're both chained to this guy, and they don't have to be. It's a total choice. It's a total, complete illusion. So when it appears in the major arcana as a soul archetype card, it's just reminding you that, you know, your focus needs to be somewhere else. Let's do another card. Well, I guess we're going to have a run on major cards here today. We have the moon. 18th card of the major arcana. We see the moon looking down between two towers, two dogs barking at it. Not particularly happy. We see a lobster emerging from the pool below. The lobster denotes, because they shed their skin, it basically is indicative of rebirth or transformation. But the moon can indicate deception. So if we're going to talk about the devil then, and we're going to put that then with the moon, I think that what we're talking about here is some egos getting in the way and is being a little bit deceptive and not, you know, being honest here. Again, it continues the theme between dark and light, although, you know, it's literally, well, I mean, you have the darker colored dog and the lighter colored dog, so that's the shadow side of self versus spirit. You have the running theme here in tarot of the two towers, or the two pillars, and then the pathway going up to new adventures or new challenges. Or perhaps we've come down from all of that and we're having a little bit of rebirth with the lobster and renewal and transformation. But although that the moon can indicate deception, it can also indicate the transforming of the polarity within. So if you go then from the devil to the moon, you have a 6 energy and a 9 energy. Is that right? Yeah, 18, 8 and 1 is 9, 15, 5 and 1 is 6. So we have a 6 and a 9. 9 is completion. 6 is about shared experience. But basically, when we incarnate into form, we have to figure out a way how to balance that, don't we? So I lost my sticky notes there. Over there. Excuse me. Yeah, I think the parallels between the two cards are obvious, although the devil is really dealing more with the shadow side of self than the moon is. So here we're starting to understand that we do need to get into some kind of balance between dark and light. Otherwise, the dark side of the shadow side of self tends to take over, and we're in that reactive, ego-minded state instead of a spirit focus. Interesting. Major or not? Let's see. Nope. We have the Six of Wands. Here we see a noble person coming back from somewhere. He's being supported by the other townspeople, or maybe by other people that are, in the court or something. We see a wreath up at the top of the one that he's carrying, or the staff that he's carrying, indicating victory. He's also wearing one on his head. The horse is looking at us quite coyly. Like, yes, we were successful. Of course we were. But again, 6 is about shared experience, about shared abundance. It's about harmony. So again, I think that I'm going to do a 4th card though. I think we're talking about bringing the shadow side of self in harmony with spirit. Change and transformation is not always easy. We get into the habit of certain behaviors and certain ways of perceiving things, and it's difficult to let them go. A focus on ego can be fun. But sooner or later, we've got to find a balance to all of that. I have some cottonwood in my eye. It's literally like cotton fuzz floating around. It's like it's snowing. They come off the trees in these, the wind blows the seeds off, and they're like a group of little balls on it, on this little, I don't know, part of a branch. And every single one of them explodes into this cotton stuff. And it gets everywhere. It gets in my juniper shrubs. It's all over my garden area. It's in the apiary. The bees hate it, It gets all in my ponds. I mean, it's just icky. It only happens one time a year though, so thankfully. Problem is you can't breathe. It's that irritating to the nose and to the lungs and to the throat. You can't breathe. You get this major allergic reaction to it. Well, okay, more transformation. So it's the death card. So we had 3 majors. This is an important reading, okay? Whenever you see this, I mean, even if you get 1, but when you get a run on them like this, it'd have been better if we gotten all 4 of them. But given what the 6 of Wands represents, we really don't need that. But here we have, again, death coming through on his white horse. Again, if you look over here, you see the 2 pillars from the moon, don't you? But there we see the sun either rising or setting on the scene. You see the king is dead on the ground. 2 other people, a young person and a woman, in various stages of upset. We see a priest. And we see the beautiful white rose. Again, it's the 13th card of the major arcana, aligning with 13 today. So let's talk about this. Throughout the devil, the moon, and death is the idea of transformation, of understanding that we are not the bodies that we inhabit, but that we are spirit. And with the devil, basically what we're doing here is we're trying to align the polarity that we experience here in tangible form. But what we need to understand, it is not just masculine and feminine polarity that we need to align with. Although that's helpful because it got out of alignment and now we have the whole patriarchal nonsense that women have to deal with all the time, right? But the true polarity is found in the as above, so below expression. In this case, it's just about will. Will is all that matters. Emotions, the emotions don't matter, only will. So intellect doesn't matter, none of that matters. Spirit doesn't matter, just will, just ego. And then we come to the moon where we're going to start to balance that polarity, the dark with the light. We see evidence of rebirth with the lobster, a new path taking hold, one that considers spirit in the equation. Here, and this could go after the third, the death card, or it can stay where it is. We have the 6, which, if you look at the way he's headed toward the future, isn't he? If he was going back the other way, then that's the past. But in a sense, this is transformation because he's headed toward the future. Even the people behind him are headed in the same direction. And that's another thing, will in balance with others, in harmony. So I think we'll put that one at the end. We'll put the death card after the moon. I think it belongs there because the sun's coming up between the same 2 pillars, the same 2 towers. So I have to think that what higher self is trying to suggest to us here today is that we need to think about who we really are, and that higher self's not going to take a back seat to the ego any longer, and that if we expect to go forward in any kind of harmonious effort, with any kind of common purpose, we have to allow for spirit to inform everything. We cannot allow the ego to take hold any longer and basically control the room, control the decisions that we make. We have to make our decisions from a better place, from something more resonant with spirit, with the creator. So much of that, everything is done in the name of religion. And it's not even close to what any of that was supposed to be. Because as long as you see the other instead of the other side of self, instead of seeing a brother, instead of seeing a family member, as long as you can't allow for that possibility within you, then you're controlled by the primal nature of self, and you're not controlled by spirit. We are spirit incarnated into form for a short time to experience life, to gain all that wisdom and transmit it back to source energy, back to the creator. So it was never really about balancing any kind of masculine and feminine within, because that only exists in the body. It only exists in form. In spirit, it doesn't exist at all. Because these are non-issues. All that we contend with here, seeing the us versus them nature of things, that's not what spirit is. Interesting. Let's do a rune. So I think basically what higher self is saying, is, wake up. I'm here. Be aware of me. Be aware of you, of who you really are, and see things from a broader standpoint, so that we can then, go forward in a common purpose and a shared experience. Well, of course, it's Rido, the 5th rune of the Elder Futhark. So change and fulfillment. I'm going to take a quick moment here and draw this out. I want to show you what's also included in Rido. So basically, Rido is like the soul journey. It's about rhythmic motion. It's about harmony. Think rider and horse. You can see Laguz. You can see Vunyo. You can see Kenaz. Actually, you can see Kenaz both forward and reversed. So you can see Yera if you looked at it that way. Again, cycles and balanced energy exchange, balanced motion, rhythmic movement. So here's Rado. Here's Vunyo. You can see that. There's Laguz. There's Kenaz. That's forward, normal. And then reverse, there's Kenaz, so light turning inward. It's saying that we need to transform, we need to change, we need to understand who we are. Again, soul journey, travel, including ritual and astral. It can be a focus in trance work, actually. You can look at the rune and move within it. Justice, right order, finding true purpose, progress, attunement to cosmic harmony, creating harmonious working relationships with others. I don't know, I think you can see the theme here. Let's do the geomancy rune, though. And again, if you're new here, geomancy is just it's an older divination tool. Geomancy can mean all kinds of things, though. It doesn't have to mean this. It can mean pendulum work, ley lines, all of that. But this is just another earth type of earth focused divination tool. It goes in the order of fire, air, water, and earth. So one side has one dot, the other side has two dots. And it goes in a specific order. Again, fire, air, water, and earth, and then you figure out what it is from there. So right now I've got, let's see, I want to say it's Rubeus. It is. Okay. Rubeus is considered an evil influence by older geomancers, if you will, if you want to call it that, Agrippa and people like that. There's certain of the geomancy runes that are considered evil. Rubeus is one of them. Carcer is another one. Cata Draconis is the other. And it's said that if you draw this first in a reading, then you have to just not do the reading. I think Rubeus is one of them. I know Carcer is and Cata Draconis is. I don't actually believe that, but so I ignore that and I do the readings anyway. But if you want to see what these actually look like, I do them once a month at the beginning of each month. Along with a monthly tarot, I do a monthly geomancy reading. So you can check that out and see how this actually works. But I started doing this at the end of the readings just to get one more piece of information. And this is what I drew, called Rubeus. The two dots indicate a passive influence and a single dot indicates an active influence. And so here you've got passive influences on fire, water, and earth, and an active one on air. So Rubeus can be arrogant. They can be way too passionate. Okay, it's when passion gets away from us. So they can get real mouthy. They can be arrogant. Probably aligning most with the devil card, with maybe being just a little too focused on ego. So I think that what we're doing here, this would be then the foundation or the transition point, along with the devil card, where we're actually beginning to make that transition away from the ego and more towards spirit. Understanding that this is a rhythmic, harmonious soul journey that we're in collectively with everyone. I know it just appears we're alone. We're not. We're collectively doing this. It's a shared experience, even though we might not realize it. It's hard to realize that, though, about someone you're not happy with, isn't it? You know, if you've got a neighbor you don't like, or some person you work with that you don't like, you just can't stand them. Maybe they taunt you, maybe they aggravate you, maybe they're just one of those people that just likes to do stuff like that, and they're really challenging. So it's very difficult to see somebody like that as the other side of self, isn't it? But it's those people in particular that you need to be thinking about that with, isn't it? You need to look at that and say, my gosh, am I like that at all? Or to look at that other person and say, wow, I don't want to be like that, you know, to make that assessment. I'll need to stay on my path, and not be deterred or distracted by this person who wants to taunt me and upset me. See, that's the other part of it. There's a lot you can learn when you consider someone else as the other side of self. I look at my husband, and he has an easier time talking to people in moments of conflict. He has an easier time of that. He does it with more grace than I do. And I can get really caught up in the emotion of it. And he can too, but typically not so much. And so if I look at him as the other side of self, I can look at him and think, oh gosh, how can he do that and I can't, and be all jealous about it. Or I can look at that and go, wow, I need to emulate that. How does he do that? I need to be more like that. I need to have more grace in my life. That could be, I mean, you can basically do that with anyone, can't you? You have a best friend that has a quality that just isn't you, and you kind of wish it were, Well, it gives you a window into how that functions and how that manifests, doesn't it? So we all need to see each other as the other side of self, and bless each other for all of the learning that we get out of all of it, all of the experience, all of the education we get, from watching other people, how they function in life or don't, either way. But it also gives you the ability to not judge. It also gives you the ability to extend love and compassion, and just to create that as your basic, energy that you extend out to others, instead of, the judgment and the worry and the fear and all of the things that we do to tell us that we're different from someone else, that we're not like them, that they're not us, they're not one of us, and keeps that whole us versus them division going. And I think that you can see where higher self is saying, not so fast. It does not reflect truth. It doesn't reflect reality. And we all need to get on that same page now, because we need to move forward together. This all conflict nonsense isn't working. It's just not. So anyhow, take the passion from Rubius and use it to transform your life. Maybe even get a little willful about it, as you ride in harmony with others. Well, cool. Well, we're right at about 32 minutes, almost 33, so I think that can probably do it for today. I will see you on Monday. I don't do these on Fridays, as you all know, if you've been here before. If you haven't, then I don't do these on Fridays. Anyhow, I'm actually an author too. I have a blog, and I have to do a bunch of stuff on that always. I've got 2 books going, and always at any given time, I seem to have 2 books going. These days, one of them is a novel, and I'm still working on that. But another one is sort of having to do with what we're talking about these days, transformation. And so I'm kind of excited about that. It's not going to be very long, because I don't think that we need to take up a whole lot of space to say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, like you see in some of those kinds of books. Let's not repeat ourselves. Only do it enough to drive the point home, and then let it go. You don't have to have a 1,000-page book, when 100 pages will do just fine to explain the whole idea. So anyhow, I'm not sure how long it's going to be. It'll probably be more than 100 pages though, but still, I don't know, maybe not. It's just, here's a guide. It's sort of a guidebook. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. And so I'll be working on that. I'll be continuing to work in the garden, and I've got to get out into the valerian. It's calling me. It's like, please come out. See what we're doing. Anyhow, be good to yourself. Be good to one another. We'll see you on Monday, and blessed be.